Tom hit it. Hi there, I'm Tom B from Old Tom's Wormery. This is my big worm bin. This is the 2x2 version. There's a 2x6 version, 3 times as much vermicompost. We're hoping to get about 5 gallons of vermicompost out of this on each harvest. If we feed him finished compost, it should give us 5 gallons of harvest a week. That's kind of optimistic. Really, 5 gallons every 2 weeks would be a little more realistic. If you feed it food scraps and paper scraps, it's more like 5 gallons a month. So pre-compost. If you pre-compost, this guy goes real fast. So to start it, I should give you a peek down inside, but we'll show you another day. The bottom, I think, does this show the bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah. You see that the bottom is pipes. The compost sits on pipes. The compost actually stays up on the pipes until you do the harvest. So to start the bin, you don't want to just dump stuff in, it'll fall through the pipes. Instead, we line it with a paper bathtub. So we tuck the paper in. It goes up the sides a little bit. With the paper bathtub, nothing falls through the edges. If you just had a cardboard sheet on the bottom, stuff would fall out the edges. So instead, we put in the bathtub first. And then we put in the cardboard. We put in the cardboard because the paper would rot too fast. Doing it this way, the stuff that we're starting with stays up there, gives the compost time to set up, and it actually holds together as a clump and doesn't fall through the pipes until you do the harvest. This gives us a chance to get that stuff in there so it can do its setup. Usually, when they tell you to start these things, they tell you put some compost in there and it's going to be a sacrifice compost, and when you do your first harvest, you're harvesting stuff that isn't finished. I cheat. I've got a trick for everything, and the trick for starting one of these guys is you put finished compost, finished vermicompost in the bottom. What's good about the finished vermicompost is, first of all, when you do your first harvest, you're harvesting vermicompost. But even better than that, when I put it here in the bottom, the worms don't want to go down there so much. It's already finished, and they want to go up to where the food is. And that means that my paper and my cardboard are a little protected, and they get a better chance to let the compost set up to stay where it's supposed to be before it's time to do that first harvest. So let me grab my bag of finished vermicompost to dump in there. I get a lot of this, but hopefully you're growing worms, and so you've got some. It doesn't need this much, but I have a lot, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. It's about 5 gallons worth. That's what my finished vermicompost looks like. It comes out of a machine like this. The worms have finished off everything. I didn't sift this. You may need to sift. Sometimes you do get worms. I don't usually get many, but there's always a few come through. And also, when it goes through a machine like this, it takes, any item that you put in takes about 2 or 3 months to go through, and that gives a chance for all the cocoons to hatch, so you shouldn't get babies either. So I'm going to spread it out in the bottom. That 5 gallons is giving me a layer about 1 inch or 2 deep. It'll settle probably to about 1 inch. And then I'm going to add my worms. I have here 2 pounds of worms. When I pack these for selling to somebody, they didn't buy them, and so I've got them left over. When I pack them in a compost, which means they travel very easily because they're already in their living compost. I have the pre-compost that I prepared for it. In they go. I believe in also no worm left behind, so I will, after the video, rescue the last of these few worms and put them in. So there's my worm sitting on top of vermicompost. There's how thick they are down in there. And then I add a little compost on top. And when I say compost, it's really a pre-compost. It was done pretty quick, about a week. So it's not really finished compost. In the composter, we're still running about 110, maybe 100. But since it's going in very shallow, it doesn't heat up again. So we'll just dump this right on top of the worms. I don't know if you could hear that. It's kind of wet. When I was grabbing it today, it was dry in the bin, so I wetted it. But wet is good for starting the worms. You want it to dry out for your harvest, but for growing the worms, they're happy a little bit wetter. So, I have that first inch, maybe 2 inches of finished vermicompost. I have my little tiny layer of worms. I now have about an inch of compost for them to eat their way up through. We're done. But we want to walk away. We can't leave it open like this. So I always go with a worm blanket. The worm blanket helps keep the moisture in the bed. It also lets the worms come all the way to the surface. They don't feel exposed, so they crawl around right underneath the blanket. And it just leaves me a healthier experience of growing these worms. So I'm going to grab the worm blanket. People use cardboard as their worm blanket, but it rots, and so I don't like it. They use burlap or any other fabrics, but they rot and I don't like it. Newspaper, any of those organics, they rot out eventually. That rotting is healthy for your worms, that's fine. I'm lazy, I don't like rotten things on top for me to handle, so what I use is either a garbage bag. The tall kitchen garbage bags are nicely sized for this, or a little more pleasant. Best worm blanket is a baby blanket. Baby blankets are typically made of a polyester, so that way they stay clean for your baby, and I figure that's helping them to stay clean for my worms. If it ever gets dirty, all I do is pull it out, I rinse it off, wring it out, put it back in. Being polyester, it doesn't rot. There are questions. People ask about getting microplastics in my vermicompost. There's probably a little tiny bit of that going on, I guess. Not enough for me to worry about. Hopefully not enough to worry you. If it does worry you, go with those organics, like any fabrics, any papers. In fact, I'll show you as I put the lid on, I'll show you if I used a cardboard worm blanket, what it would look like. But I'm about to pop on the lid and finish my video. Pardon me. Lid coming through. So this is if you used a cardboard worm blanket. It would just like that. I will end up shredding this and feeding it to the worms. Here's my lid. I'm done. Bye.